This is the 100X podcast. Today, we are joined by Nick Slettengren. We are going to be talking a lot about how to build crypto wealth, but not just how to build crypto wealth, how to maintain wealth in crypto. I think that's a conversation that gets missed out on a lot. You are a really unique person in this space, Nick. I'm glad to have met you. I'm glad to get you on here. I was going to say, for any of the young bucks trying to figure it out in crypto, I think that you're probably top 5 most successful in terms of like wealth when it comes to maintaining wealth in crypto that we've had on the podcast. So great guest. Thanks for being here.
Awesome, Matthew. Thanks for having me. So
yeah,
pumped.
Man. I would love to kick things off just because I think we mostly run in different circles inside of crypto. I would love for people to get to know who the heck Nick is. What is your story and how did you get here in crypto? Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Let's talk about Reactor, a proof-of-work blockchain that introduces a brand new economic model, deep-in mining software, a gaming distribution platform, the RKR token, and their game, Minions of Steel, that's proving their thesis by seamlessly integrating proof-of-work token mining with gaming. Through allowing players to mine with their own GPU while playing, not only do they essentially make gaming free, they make software free, and they present an AI-proof income for everyone. If you want to take a glimpse into the future and get there early, explore Reactor's ecosystem at the link below. Everybody is chasing the sweet nectar of played airdrop. Could the beacon potentially be the most fun iteration of the meta thus far? The Beacon is a collision of 3 game genres at once. Think dungeon crawler like Hades, world builder like Animal Crossing, and social MMO like RuneScape. Right now, you can complete quests to unlock the token airdrop and whitelist through our New Frontiers quest link in this episode's description. Follow the Beacon on Twitter for deets on the rite of passagement and the game's global launch. And let us know in the comments how many of the bosses you can actually beat.
Wow. Okay. So my story is a little different. I started kind of on the other side of the fence in digital marketing. So I saw that kind of emerging as a trend in the early 2000s, jumped into that, became pretty successful in SEO and search engine optimization. So kind of made a name for myself there, worked for the 3 largest agencies that did SEO in San Diego, and then ultimately spun off into starting my own company with some co-founders. We founded a company called Power Digital Marketing, and we were able to grow that over the last decade, and it's still going strong. And we found 2 exits in that company, and it was a blast. I mean, it was really an eye-opener, and really launched my success. But as I was doing that, you start to look for what's the new technology, what's interesting, where should my investments go. You start getting some of those biggie small problems, more money, more problems. And but they're all good problems. You're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I maintain wealth? How do I go ahead and expand my wealth? And one of the interesting, I had a lot of interesting clients that came across my desk. A lot of interesting clients, and logos you would all know. But one of the most interesting was a guy named Marco from Genesis Mining. One of the first largest mining operations in the world for crypto mining. And Bitcoin, Ethereum. He was out of Iceland for a while. He's actually German, and I gave a lot of credit to this guy because I was looking at him compared to my other clients, and I was always interested. He was growing like crazy through a few of those booms, in like 2017 era.
Yep.
And I was just watching it go, and I was like, whoa, this is interesting. So I actually got involved in a mining operation myself. Got exposure there. Marco, wanted me to invest while we were doing, his marketing. And I was putting money into Bitcoin myself, when Coinbase came out, and into Ethereum early on. So I just started, buying coins and getting interested like most people, and it just kind of kept going and going. And, ultimately, I look back, after, 2021, and I'm kind of, starting to realize, what are we doing here, like tax wise? And it became like a big issue. Like I had nothing on my back. I felt like, light. I felt like, I had control of my life. I had a lot of balance. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, that monkey on my back is really my crypto taxes, and I was having my wealth manager who was pointing to it. My CPA is like, don't you have crypto? Aren't you supposed to pay some taxes on that?
Like,
And
we don't know, dude. No one told
yeah,
us.
I was like, there's not a lot of, people tell, so I didn't really know, what to do, but also I know that, it started becoming a large, 7-figure endeavor, and I needed to, start reporting that or finding the way to report it. So obviously I had my CPAs look into it, and I put two horses in the race. I had one over on the left coast, one on the right coast. And I pit them against each other to find the best tax savings for me on my crypto. They both came up short. They came up with numbers that didn't even make sense compared to what my portfolio had. And so I questioned them, and they ultimately raised their hand and said, "Yeah, we don't really know what we're doing, and we need a little bit more guidance here from you, Nick." And I said, "Well, how do you need more guidance when I'm paying you thousands of dollars an hour?" So I ultimately told them to disband, and I went in search for someone that could do crypto taxes, and there was a gal in the Midwest that was able to do them for me, and was ex Big Four, and she took $1 million in what I would have owed in taxes and found close to $1 million in tax savings, 996K to be
That's
exact rather.
nuts.
So blew my mind, right? So that's when the light bulb went off. I was out of my company for a while, the digital marketing company, and I was looking for something new to do and something exciting. And I realized that the industry was flawed when it came to the accounting. And every industry needs good accounting. So I ran back in and I said, I got to do this, and I started funding it. A company called Count on Sheep, and we incubated for about 18 months, and just came up with all the processes that were missing. And we launched in late 2022. So we've done 2 tax seasons this far, and we're saving people a lot of money. People are getting better results than I got. So I'm just excited about what this has to offer. And I think there's so much more to accounting, as a snoozer as that sounds, and as boring
Yeah,
as
don't put me to
accounting
sleep.
sounds. Yeah, right. I don't want to put anyone to sleep here. There are things people don't know that they can be playing that the industry both ways. Everybody's always talking about the gains. Everybody's always talking about the 100, the 100x, the
Yeah, man. This is the
50x
100X
cash.
podcast.
That's right. Of course. That's definitely part of it. You can get in early on some of these coins, and you can do your homework, and you can win big. But what happens when the tax man comes? You know, and that's a big play. But there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate that. And that's kind of what I want to talk with you guys today about.
Dope. I really like that. I actually really appreciate what you said about like being on the other side of the fence. I think we have been having a lot of conversations lately, in at least in the crypto circles that I'm in, about how it sometimes really feels like we're screaming into an echo chamber, that everybody follows like the same couple thousand people on Twitter, and that's your
Yeah.
entire perception. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
reality that there are millions of people outside of crypto that are engaging with it and just aren't having the same conversations that we are. So I think it is
Right.
I think it's fascinating to get perspectives from people that are outside of the fence and that came in not having built wealth in crypto, but injected wealth into crypto. I think that's part of the dream that every crypto bro, every degen is dreaming about, when we
Oh,
bring everyone into crypto and you bring essentially your wealth and success with you instead of having to make it here. I have a question. I'm sure there's people, I know what this means, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't even understand what 2 exits mean. You exited from the same company twice. How does that
yeah.
work?
So that's a great question. We were lucky enough to get an exit in 2019 with a company with a private equity group up in Chicago, and that's just an opportunity to, it brings more opportunity to the company, it brings more growth, it brings more opportunity for future growth. It allows the partners to de-risk some of their capital, and be able to take some of their chips off the table, so we can invest in things like crypto
Yep.
and other things. And so that was really nice, and it really set us up, and our families and things like that for the future. And then it gives you this opportunity to, what Power Digital did is they went outside and did a bunch of roll-ups. So they went and acquired different companies that were either in competition or things that we didn't have in our arsenal, and you just start putting more arrows in your quiver. And as you do so, you start building even more equity into the company, and ultimately you go for that second sale. And and then we were able to sell to a company called Court Square, fantastic company out of New York. So it looks like a former subsidiary of
Yep.
Citigroup. So just awesome people, and and then they just keep taking it from there. I'm completely out myself. as of now. So all my equity is gone. But it's very, most companies don't have that second opportunity, to sell. To go for one exit is hard enough, but to really go through and get a second one, that's where usually people trip up, and they can't make those goals, and they can't hit those revenue goals. They can't grow the company, and and ultimately Power Digital was able to do that. So very proud of that team, the CEO. I mean, it went really well for us. So we were excited.
Cool. Nice, man. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially selling the same company twice because you grow
Yeah.
past the initial, you stayed on essentially. And
No,
then
well, to be honest, yeah, after I was able to, sit back and, basically, as a
was it that you owned
co-founder.
a portion while they continued to build it?
That's true. Yeah. So I kept my portion in, and I was able to go out and, focus on new endeavors. And that's really where the crypto piece came in.
Nice.
So
Rad, man.
I was pretty lucky to be able to do
The
both,
score, the
yeah,
entrepreneur's dream. Well
it
done.
really was.
Congrats on that success. Well, essentially that took you again. Yeah, man, you succeeded in business outside of crypto. And then once you had enough wealth in your quiver to mess around and explore new endeavors, you said, let's figure this crypto thing out. I'm curious,
100%.
someone from your team, when we first started talking, someone from your team told me you recently bought $1 million in Ethereum. I have someone very close. My brother just did the same thing, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like 9 months ago or something. And that was the original thing that piqued my interest when Tim said that. I'm curious about like your general crypto thesis, why you're in crypto, what you're doing in crypto, why in the world you threw $1 million in Ethereum, what drove that decision. Lay it down.
Yeah, it just, with these ETFs, it just became pretty apparent to me that we're having a huge paradigm shift. To have Wall Street come out that was condemning, crypto since the beginning, and have this big shift where all of a sudden we have ETFs, and all of a sudden they have to have, proof of reserve, right? So if we're talking proof of reserve, that means that they need, for every ETF they sell, they need to have some Bitcoin on hand, for instance. So same with Ethereum. So, it's very important that we understand that. So that means that these big institutions that are the biggest in the world, the BlackRocks of the world,
Yep.
need to have proof of reserve, and they need to be having their wallets fat with, with ETH and with Bitcoin now, to be able to, so every time they issue an ETF, they need to have that on reserve. So, I mean, that's just taking it off the chain, and, that's huge. And that's going to, basically push that supply down, and as a result we should see those prices move up. So that was my my thesis in that. It's not crazy. I think that's econ 101.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I go big. I mean, I have about 50% plus of my of all my wealth I've taken from my other jobs, and put it into this industry specifically. Yeah,
Well done.
yeah, I think it's, I believe in it big time. I'm big on Bitcoin still. I'm big on Ethereum. Solana, is probably, those probably make up 85% of my portfolio. And
Yeah.
then, then we have some other coins that we
The
throw
big
for
three.
yards with.
Do
Yeah, the big
you
three.
do you still, this is something I'm curious about. I know most people that are listening, probably, I would say a huge portion of the people that listen are buying much smaller tokens. They're essentially buying into startups, hoping that they'll succeed and give them that 100x gain. Do you still mess around with anything smaller, or are you just playing in the big leagues? And
Uh,
the reason I asked that,
yeah,
I do think I look at like the market cap of some of those smaller ones. Like sometimes when I look at a token, I'm like, oh, that could 100x from here, or that could 20x, or that could 30x. Well, the market cap, I mean, if you were to throw $1 million into that token, every single person would use that $1 million to just exit immediately because the market cap
totally.
is so small. So I don't know. I'm curious. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I'm just I'm a little bit risk adverse to that. Like I mean, it's just, yeah, I'm not sure that, the meme coins and everything. I didn't quite get into that as much as I should. No doubt I have a few bags. Don't get me wrong, but they're so minuscule. They're 1 or 2% of my portfolio, if that. And it's just but I've had good use cases through friends. Like I have proxies, I have people that are in big funds, and I have people that, like, know how to kind of pick these unicorns, that are in my ecosystem. But for some reason, I just don't go for it. Really, my goal is to preserve wealth, and you have to, when you get to a certain point, you got to start kind of de-risking a little bit.
Your
So
degen
my
days are behind you.
it really is a little bit, and I love it. I love watching other people do it. I like other people winning and seeing these big wins and taking, coming from nothing and creating something. So I'm a big proponent of that, and I love people, young people taking risks, especially. And I think you should be taking risks throughout your life. But for what I'm seeing right now, I've been in the game for a while. Most of my stuff has gone into those categories. I've ran cycles where I've played with a bunch of altcoins and stuff, and I've won some, I lost some. But with the most part, I always keep pushing into that treasury, I call it, that is
Yep.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana.
Yeah. Well said. And I think anyone would tend to agree with those three. I'm curious, maybe less about like a specific token, and more just
Yeah.
like general crypto industries or sectors. Are there specific, if we're in a bull market, maybe 2024, 2025, early, maybe 2026, are there like specific sectors that you're watching as someone who, whether you're investing yourself or just watching out of curiosity, like, ooh, I could see these sectors doing really well. So not calling out specific coins or tokens, but just
Right.
areas inside of crypto that you're intrigued by.
Um, there's a few. There's one. I wish I had the name. Of course, I'm on the podcast. I'm completely blanking. But there was one that's under the Solana umbrella. That's basically a distributed, distributes GPU power from your computer and
Is
uses it
that
for
Genesis
AI.
Go?
Who's probably one of those? Yeah, it's Genesis.
They've
I
been
thought
on the
it was.
podcast. They're the biggest one on Solana that does that.
Are they?
Um,
So I think it probably is, and then it's those guys, and then I like Jupiter, for the exchange on Solana. I think that has a lot of legs. I mean, come on, if we've seen ETF launch for Solana, which if BlackRock gets behind it, probably going to happen.
I
They
think
kind of
I think that, I mean, I called the Solana ETF a year and a half ago. It's coming. I
yeah.
know people are crazy. You don't believe in it. Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening early 2025.
So why not get with the biggest exchange and like the biggest AI token?
Yeah.
That's kind of like, I'm not here to give investment advice, but that's something that I could get my head around, and that I can show some exposure to my accounts personally with. So, I mean, I think that's one. Matthew, gaming's hot. I mean, that's not going anywhere. I mean, come on, I get down on Fortnite with my 10-year-old. I
That's
mean,
right, baby.
dude, you know how it goes, and it's just like you can't stop it, and it has really the best use cases, as you know, for all these like in-app purchases and things like that, and trading coins for different things. So I can definitely see like the gaming thing be a big one
And
again on
Solana
this.
gaming is not
Yeah,
going anywhere. Neon
100%.
Heroes is probably my favorite game on Solana, but there's a handful that are coming out that are doing really cool things, and some of those guys are launching tokens. So who knows what's going to happen with the Solana gaming ecosystem?
Oh,
You're a
100%.
Solana boy. That's
Yeah, they
I don't
kind
know
of
that I
got me.
pick a camp, but so if you had to pick, if you had to choose between Solana and Ethereum to like hedge your bets, which ecosystem would you prefer?
Oh man, I
Just
mean,
throwing you under the bus with somebody.
you got me. You got me for a million going into Ethereum. For everybody listening out there. So I mean, yeah, I'm still Ethereum. I've been long on Ethereum for a long time. So I think Solana has so much more to offer. And I think it is kind of new kid on the block, and I think it is it can do some revolutionary things. But when you have like Jamie Dimon, who hates everybody in crypto, but then says, yeah, Ethereum's pretty cool, or they're clearly building stuff on Ethereum. I think some
Yeah,
of
he
these
trashes it, but then throws $1 billion into it. Yeah, that's Jamie Dimon.
exactly, that's Jamie. So I mean, when you hear stuff like that, I gotta, you just kind of, you don't have to really read the tea leaves. You can kind of be like, all right, some of the biggest infrastructure banking in the world is going to be on Ethereum, hands down. So I mean, you have to kind of roll with that tide. And then then you hedge with some Solana as well, where you see the innovation come from. So I'm big on. I would say Ethereum. I'm still super big on, but yeah, it's not like I don't have my eyes on the Solana.
Do you do any like I mean, you use the word hold a lot, and so I would say we're probably pretty similar in that.
Yeah,
I don't have a ton of buys that I'm thinking like, oh, this is really short term for me.
yeah,
90% of everything that I buy is like 1 year, 2 year plus type of buys. There's a lot of traders in this space. If you were to like trade something versus hold something,
ooh,
if you had to buy for shorter term and buy for longer term, what would those be?
those would probably be like some coins like Fetch AI, and things like that. I would probably go, uh, what's some other ones I hold that are kind of like that. But at the same time, it's just I'm with you on that. Now that I'm the tax guy in crypto, I
Yep.
look for those long term caps. I need to hold stuff for a year. So I really I'm really kind of allergic to getting into some of these quick trades, and I'm not against it, and I know people know how to do it, and it's just really not my expertise. But even when I'm talking with traders in their high volume, I'm like, is there anything that we can hold on the side? Can we create a treasury for you where, you can start, collecting over here. So you have over a year. So when you do end up taking some gains, you can offset it, or, you're just paying less because you pay so much as short-term caps. So we really just try to avoid that altogether. So, I mean, that's really gotten into my head, but,
You're
yeah, I mean,
locked in on long term. That's
I
interesting that
am.
you just said Fetch AI. They just someone from their team just dropped into my DMs like 2 days ago, and I hadn't
Get
ever
them
looked at them
on,
before. So
get them
I
on.
guess I'm
Fetch
gonna have to have a
AI.
conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Hedera is interesting, but I also want to see these things mature. I want
Yeah.
to believe in these guys, as they grow their teams, and I want to make, and I want to support them in that way by holding the coin as well. So, but those are some things that, on the lower prong that I could trade in and out of if I had to.
Yeah, cool. Well said. Your crypto thesis. I want to get into to pivot into like what you guys are building at Count on Sheep, with a different way to do taxes in crypto that is more
Yeah.
focused on sustaining wealth. I have two questions that will
Yes.
will flow us into the tax conversation. The first is, if I'm listening
Sure.
right now and I don't have $1 million to throw into ETH, maybe I'm a smaller fish in the sea. I'm still early on in my investor journey. Would you play the game of like building, if I'm wanting to take the first step to build wealth, would you do that inside of crypto, knowing what you know right now, or would you do that outside of crypto and then come back inside?
Wow. Great call. I mean, I would do it too. I think there's no better way to multiply wealth than crypto right now. So I'll come out and just say it like that. I think that if you have some, but yeah, you're going to take some risks. There's a lot of rug pulls, all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of disinformation going around. Certain coins. People, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of pump and dump. The industry is still finding its way. The internet was a wild ride in the early 2000s as well. There was a lot of scams, there's a lot of crazy stuff. So I mean, this is kind of how these industries evolve. So I don't think that, so I think you got to be careful, but at the same time, you should be creating wealth in some other way. Like, create your own business, do your own e-com store, do your own things of that nature. And then, then I would say start pulling it over to here. It's a two-pronged approach in my opinion. But I look to, I go big on crypto because I'm going to double my wealth. I'm going to triple my wealth. I'm going to quadruple my wealth. Even those coins that we're talking about in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, I mean, those can easily 5x. I mean, that's conservative. If you try and get that in
Which
the stock
I think
market,
that's well
that's
said.
crazy.
That's like as a former recovering degen myself, I think a lot of times that's something that crypto bros forget about. Like you
Yeah.
see, oh, that's just going to triple. That feels weak. Like, shouldn't I be chasing 100x? Dude,
Yeah.
find me another industry that you can triple your money in like 2 years' time. You're
Yeah.
like, most of the times you're looking for 10%, not 100%, not 300%. It's crazy. Yeah, this is
100%.
a different ballgame.
Oh yeah, and your first $1 million will always be your hardest. Your first million is going to be painful. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anyone on the show, and but when you get it, you also remember how much energy it took to get that money. But if you put it into it, if you do want to go big, and people think that's still crazy putting that into Bitcoin, but I mean, look how established Bitcoin is now. But you put $1 million into Bitcoin and wait till 2030. What do you think? What do you think your life's going to look like? It could potentially go to what, $500,000 of Bitcoin, could go to $1 million of Bitcoin people are calling for. And you just have, like that could be wild for you, at its current state,
So there's still a little bit of degen in your soul, Nick.
Oh
You still
yeah.
taking some of those bets. It's just safer bets. Okay,
A little,
so
a little safer. Yeah.
we've set the stage. Now I've made it. I got my first million. This is where I think I want to pivot to. How do I stay wealthy inside of, maybe I'm a crypto investor, I'm a buyer, I'm retail. There are so many stories of people in crypto making it and coming from nothing and then turning it into $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, and then a year later having nothing at all. and losing
Right.
everything. Like it's actually crazy the number of times I've seen on my Twitter feed in the last like month and a half of people saying, this is blank's story of how they made it and then lost it all. Like that is
Yeah.
really popular in the Twitter meta right now. And I think I want to, for anyone that's a part of the 100X community, like 100X does not just mean, hey, we're degen, let's 100X
Yeah.
and continue throwing money at everything for the rest of our lives. It's like, no, I want to actually 100X the value of my life. And that means maintaining everything that I'm able to generate. And so I want to pivot into how we maintain the wealth we build and maybe some of the things you're doing at Count on Sheep that would take us there. What are some, how do I put this? I said it before, you're probably in your current state, you're probably top 5 wealthiest people that have been on this podcast to date. You're succeeding in finance, you're succeeding in wealth, you're succeeding as an entrepreneur. And I assume because of that, there are things that you do differently in your investing lifestyle than maybe someone with $100,000 net worth or someone with a $10,000 net worth or someone with a $5 million net worth. You're going to be playing a different game than those guys. And I think this is the time that I want people to be able to take the time to learn, okay, where does that switch flip in you and people of your caliber and wealth and investing right now? What are you doing differently that maybe the general public doesn't know about?
Well, maybe we should start what the general public does know about and what we kind of preach all the time in our industry in crypto is take profits. And one of the biggest things here is, learn from my mistakes and 2015, 2017, 2018 bull run, 2021 bull run. I mean, I just keep not taking, or taking very little. And
We've
you
all
really
been there.
yeah, I've done it like 3 times, guys. So, I'm the most guilty person out there for it. But this bull cycle, in bull run, I'm going to have, I have a plan in place for the first time. And it's like, I've already put, my sell-offs, what levels they're going to be at, how much I'm going to sell off, how much I plan on keeping through another cycle, etc. So I've written it all down. There's no way around it. I put those in, those trades in already. And it's just going to start liquidating when we get to certain parts. And it's going to start liquidating certain bags that I want to liquidate first. And what we can kind of get into in a moment is, we even have basically a formula here that we've created with one of our guys from Ernst & Young who works for us. And that tells you which bags to sell when to have the lowest tax liability. So I even have it set up to being like, I'm going to sell all these first to make sure that I have the least amount of taxes to pay after.
What does that mean? Like prioritizing, I think you mentioned things people do know.
Yes.
Yeah, the idea of like, let's take profits, let's craft a legitimate plan. That's like head knowledge. Not everybody succeeds at it, but that's head knowledge. But that point you just made of like, hey, which bag I should sell first to minimize tax loss, I don't think that's common knowledge. So there's
Not
actually like an order that I
knowledge.
should time my sells.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the first ones you should look at is your short-term versus your long-term trades. And, how many have you gone long on? How many have you gone short on? So I think that's really big. Also, it's worth having a conversation about tax loss harvesting. That's a huge one for us is, being able to say, okay, let's get real. Some of these bets that we made have gone terribly wrong. Let's sell out of them. Or, and let's take that loss. Banking losses is one of the best things you can do. If I can, just kind of hang my hat on one scenario in this entire podcast, it's teaching the listeners how to take an L. That's what rich people do, and they it's like, oh, no, rich people just win. No. They lose and they know how to lose well. And what I mean by that is they know how to tax loss harvest. They know how to go and look at, their coins that aren't doing well, get out of those coins. And they could always come back to them and buy back in if they want. But at the same time, they want to bank those losses for those future gains because they're not worried so much about what the market's going to do. They're worried about when they sell because they have a selling strategy, they do. And they're going to be able to, get hit, or they will be hit by the tax implications of that. So they're already worried more about the tax man than they are about making the money because they know the money is going to come, but they know the tax man is going to come right after. So they're banking those losses.
He wants his toll. Okay,
100%.
so paint me a scenario. Paint me a scenario for when I would want to sell in order to tax loss harvest. Even if I'm going to come back in, when would I want to exit in order to take advantage of that?
You want to do this kind of, it really depends on where you are in the year. I mean, typically you definitely want to take a look at that towards the end of the year, because that's, that's the cutoff for for what your taxable income was for that year. So that's one thing you definitely want to take a look at. But things I'm looking at are just outliers. We look at everybody's portfolio holistically, and we look at we try and find those outliers, like where okay, you're winning big over here, but then how do we offset with some of the losers? So I think that's really what we do is we go in and we really take a good look at that, and we actually have a spreadsheet, a formula that's kind of programmed to do this for us. So now it takes a lot of the numbing mind work out of it, makes it very proficient, and that's something we can do for you at Count on Sheep as part of our service.
Is this legal? I have a question. This is something that I've done in the past. Maybe trying to remember what year this might have been 2021 that I did this, where I had a couple of really big wins. Probably my biggest wins in crypto at that point for sure. But then I had some big losses. Like I had some NFTs that I bought for a handful of them for like a couple $1,000, and then they went down to like being worth literally nothing. Not like the apes where they just went down in value. Like these were worth a penny. And so for those ones, for example, I just used, it was totally free. There was a cool app somewhere, I don't even remember what it's called, that I just sent them my NFTs and they burned them. So it was like I bought them for a couple thousand, I sold them for a penny. That, I think that's fine and legal. But the other thing I did was finding like, okay, well, I bought this bag for I don't know, let's just use a round number. So I spent 10,000 on this bag, and then I watched it come down to 1,000. I'm still really bullish on it. Like I think they're in a bad moment or the market's down, but like I could see this bag turning into $100,000 still. So I sell the bag that I bought for 10,000 for 1,000, and now it's a $9,000 loss. And then I just buy that right back at 1,000 again. Is that legal?
So right now, once again, I got to tell everybody I'm not a lawyer, and I can't give you any legal advice on this. But at the same time, that would be a wash sale in any other industry. In the stock market, that would not be allowed. You would have to wait 30 days, and maybe an extra day just for good luck, to be able to buy back.
I waited 31. Actually, I think I did wait 31 days last time.
See,
because the market was so down that it was like, okay, I'm pretty confident that nothing's going to change in 30 days.
Right. If we're having a sideways summer and stuff like that, might as well just do that. But at the same time, crypto is not a security. We've got, it is not a security like Tesla. So, you can't do a wash sale on on a stock rather like Tesla, where, and you have to wait that 30 days plus, and then you can buy back into that position. Whereas that is defined by security. However, in our industry, crypto coins are not considered securities at this time. So therefore, that specific wash sale rule is not applying at this time. However, the IRS has gone as far to say that if you're doing this just to game the system, that and they find it to be that that they can reverse those trades if you're just buying back, banking a loss, coming back and doing that. So that's one thing to think about. The other piece is, I think that the IRS really just wants right now. It's not really looking to, punish people. I think at this point in the game, they really just want people to start paying their crypto taxes. And I ran into some of the IRS at the Consensus in Austin. One of the largest. How you say that, crypto conferences in the US. So with that said, we had a great conversation with them, and they just want people to be aware that this is taxable and you need to start paying taxes. So I think that, as far as doing things like that and whatever you did in the past, I think that, they're not so much looking to go back. They're looking to move forward with things, and they want people to come on board and start, reporting their cryptocurrency correctly.
Yeah, well said. I'm curious you mentioned something earlier as well with about timing. And we talked about timing when you are risk loss or when you're loss harvesting essentially. But you mentioned before in a different conversation, something about cost-based modeling with like first in, first out, last in, first out, and essentially how to save money based on when you buy specific things. What the heck is that?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest optimizations that we can do for you all, that we do here, and that you can do for yourself, if you have the expertise. But cost-based modeling is extremely important on the way that you report your taxes. And right now, there you can choose pretty much any model you want. But typically, most of the DIY softwares that we're using and stuff, things like that, they'll do first in, first out is usually what they default to, and that's not going to give you the best tax benefits. First in, first out. That could be like you bought Bitcoin at $300. You're early in 2012, and then you've held it all the way till now, and now it's 100, 200, 300x on you. And now you have this huge tax liability from the $300 you built in down to $70,000 at the top. I mean, that's a lot of gains and taxes to pay. So you don't want that model necessarily. So you probably want something that, what happens if you bought Bitcoin a few weeks ago and you got it at 67,000. You probably want to take that as your cost basis and get rid of that that last one in, and make that one the first one out, because it has the
So if I'm
smallest amount
selling,
of gain.
so essentially if I'm selling Bitcoin for profit at that point, I'm selling the specific amount that I bought when it was at 67,000, not the amount that I bought when it was like sub 1,000.
Exactly. And that's
How
going
do you even
to,
track like which, is that just the way that it's being documented? Like, how do you track which Bitcoin I'm selling at that point?
That's a great point. Well, that's where we're having a lot of the problems in the industry, is with the cost base, establishing cost basis, and also passing it from exchange to exchange. So one of the biggest issues we see is, like most of us, we use multiple exchanges to access
Yep.
multiple coins. So when you're not properly matching your wallets on some of these softwares, for instance, if you're using Coinly, which we really love, and some of these other ones, if you don't match your wallets correctly, it doesn't show that you're transferring money from Coinbase to Gemini to Binance, etc. Those aren't taxable events. But if you don't tag those correctly, it just looks as though you sold it. When you sent it to Gemini to your wallet, it just looks like you sold it to some other wallet, and it defaults to a taxable event. So that's very problematic. And we're seeing people pay 2, 3, 4, 5x the amount of taxes they need to pay, just because they can't get the wallet. They're not matching wallets correctly. So I mean, that's one of the big issues we're seeing right now in the taxation of crypto.
Yeah, well said. I have another question. I asked you this before, but essentially it is July 3rd at the time of recording. Hey, 4th is tomorrow. Gonna have a great time. It's July 3rd right now. The average person is not thinking about their taxes. It's like, I think before I got into crypto, even when I owned businesses, I was not thinking about my taxes in July. Not a chance.
Right.
Like December, maybe, January, February, March, I'm thinking about my taxes. May, June, July, August, no, not a chance. I don't like, what do you do as someone who is working on essentially revolutionizing the way that we deal with taxes in crypto, when the average person just isn't thinking about taxes 9 months out of the year? And should I be thinking about my taxes in July?
Absolutely. Because it's so much more than taxes. It's the strategy around it. It's the planning. There's so much we can do with crypto to mitigate not just our crypto taxes, but our taxes, from our properties you might own, or from your income, or for, there's so many ways to, get better tax benefits through focusing on your taxes. So, July is a little slow. Typically what we see in our industry is, call it February to April 15th, we're just slammed, and it's crazy. And also, as a result, our prices go up because everyone's trying to jump in last minute, and it raises our price rate, and we have to, and if people want to get in last minute and they want to pay to play, we allow for that, just like all the other CPA firms. But with that said, though, we also want to tell people that there's an off season, and come May, we're twiddling our thumbs a little bit. It gets a little bit slower in here. We have corporate clients we use. We should also shout out to our Web3 and other cryptocurrency clients we use. So we have a business side as well as a personal side. So that smooths that line a little bit for us in terms of revenue growth. But at the same time, people just, they check out. But that's the best time to get it done, is when everybody's looking this way and you're looking that way. We're going to give you the best price, and that's going to be, sub $300, $250 is kind of our low point, but we, make up for that in savings every time.
I mean, that makes sense as far as like using tax consultants and CPAs at that point. What about like, is there an impact to the way that I would trade or invest? Like, because you mentioned, the reason I'm asking this is you mentioned a second ago with like, hey, part of it is taking, like you talked about how you craft plans to take profits, how you craft plans on which tokens you sell and when you sell them. A lot of it for you guys is specifically about like, hey, let's not just go into this guns blazing, but if you want to succeed in generating and maintaining wealth, a lot of it is about the plan that you develop. Is there actual like plans that will impact the way that I trade based on what I'm thinking about 6 months away in tax season?
For sure. I think so. I think one of the biggest things is getting all your tax liabilities up front so you can see them. I think that will start governing the way you trade, and you'll start looking more for those losses and you'll start banking those losses early on and things of that nature. So having everything laid out in front of you, getting your dashboard set up that shows you what your taxable liabilities are so you can have that on one screen while you're doing your trading is going to be huge. So I think it gives you a lot of great insight. And then it also allows for us to do those exercises like, okay, let's create a sell-off plan for you for the next bull cycle here. And, let's, based on what we have so far, you're going to want to get rid of this amount of ETH, this amount of, oh, wait, you want to keep all your Bitcoin? Okay, we'll completely, shut down that column and we'll just work on selling these coins specifically. So, we come up with a very strategic play once we understand, where the portfolio lies, what your current taxable liabilities are. And then also you can trade on top of that to see, to start maximizing those gains as well.
Yeah, even with the question I asked earlier about the 30 days, I actually do remember now. That was a couple of years ago, so I was forgetting about that. Yeah. But I actually do remember that I think there was like a certain time period that harvesting had to be done by. Like I don't think you were allowed to do that in December because then the IRS considers that like you're just doing that intentionally. Totally. So I think it had to be done. Like I forget exactly. I'm sure you would know better.
Yeah, than me. I mean, I would argue, you have to do it when it makes sense. You can't just, when you
rush it at the end of the year.
Come December 31st, and you're doing trying to do a wash trade right before the,
you're screwed at that point.
Yeah, the ball drops, in New York. It's not going to be the best look, right? So, but yeah, you want to be looking those trades, and you want to be making those throughout the year, and really banking those losses, taking an L. Once again, want to reiterate that's what the wealthy are doing. It just is. And, and we're seeing this all the time, and we have blockchain analysis tools, and we see large wallets all the time that are on block on the chain, and they are, moving money out for a minute, and all of a sudden it comes back in very quickly. So we're seeing people at all levels of the game doing this, but we're also seeing it, at a very high level with, call it hundreds, if not thousands of Bitcoins sometimes and other, cryptocurrencies. So very interesting. Still happening. I think that we're going to have more regulation coming our way. That loophole will eventually be fixed. So, yeah, I mean, that right now, that's a play people are using. We're seeing it firsthand. And, I don't think that loophole is going to be there for too much longer.
I am curious. I want to like plug you guys specifically at Count on Sheep. If you're going to teach me or anyone that's listening how to do this well, what does that relationship look like? How should we get involved with you?
Well, one of the first things we want to do is, we're excited to be on your show, Matthew. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, we love what you do. We love your content, and also your listener base. We want to offer them 15% off, and it basically, will be put right on your guys' invoice and contributed to Matthew, for in your show for getting this done. And we want to take care of anyone, that needs our help. Once again, I think one thing we should also point out is, keep your CPA. We really go in there and we deal with crypto only. We stay in our lane. So you don't have to worry about switching, after you've had this relationship with someone for a long time, your CPA. No, we do all the work that the CPA doesn't want to do. And we find all the tax savings, and then we do all the forms, and then we hand them off to you to hand to your CPA, or you can file them yourself. So that's really what we do, and that's been part of our success. We also want to shout out to any of the listeners that are Web3 crypto companies. We have a whole accounting side that we do. So if you're keeping, crypto on your books, you're trying to be compliant, you want accuracy, you want those, all your numbers pushed in and then basically pushed out to your ERPs, which could be your QuickBooks or it could be your NetSuite, and want accurate numbers. We do that as well. So those are our two big things. And, we would offer you guys 15% off on both sides. And we really appreciate, you guys listening, and any questions you have. We always could take a call with us. We do 20-minute calls for free. So, you guys will have that available to you as well through the show. And we'd love to chat. So any questions you have, we have advice, and we have CPAs on the team that can give you real advice.
Well said, Nick. We will plug you guys everywhere. Hey, if you're listening, no matter where you're at, you can find Count on Sheep and Nick and his crew and some links below. I know you mentioned before that, like, the joke about, oh, we're going to fall asleep because we're talking about accounting. I think, yeah, man, it's not a conversation that would typically fascinate me. Like, we're going to talk about taxes. I don't love the SEC, man. I battle it out with Gary all the time. Don't love the IRS. I mentioned to you off camera that I left my home state to save. I mean, one of the major reasons was to save money on taxes. But there is a reality that this conversation, the idea of losing well, of how to take advantage of rules that are in place, that maybe you miss out on if this is your first go around, or it's your first bull market, or your second bull market, or you never had wealth outside of crypto. There are ways to drastically alter the quality of your life by playing the same rules that the wealthy are playing, right? And so thank you, Nick, for giving us your insight on an industry that sometimes is glossed over. I think fascinating conversation, and we're going to get some hopeful big wins and big losses that cause big wins out of this conversation.
Let's go. Love it. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Hey, we will see you next time on 100X. You can find Nick and the crew right down here.